I completely disagree about the process on health care. We were completely excluded from the process. To the very end, the speaker was going to employ a procedure called demon pass just so they wouldn't even have to have a recorded vote. And they have, of course, used something called...
for the record.
And then they use reconciliation for the record, which has been extraordinarily controversial, and my judgment will probably change the way the Senate operates forever.
It didn't when they did it with Medicare Part D.
It has never been done in a way quite so partisan. Now that you brought up Medicare, whether it's Medicare, Social Security, civil rights, all of those bills were supported by Republicans in large numbers. This bill received 0 Republican support, the first major landmark legislation, so-called landmark legislation in American history, without bipartisan support, and with 34 Democrats against it. So you have in this country a debate going on between the extreme left, which has hijacked the Congress and the agenda, and the rest of the American people, including Democrats and independents, Ray, because all the polling data demonstrates that the nervousness in this country is with independent voters. Well, they're the people who elected Scott Brown in Massachusetts.
Since you brought up extreme left for the second time, I think we ought to discuss this a little bit, because if the extreme left had been writing the health care bill, we would have gotten single payer and the insurance companies would have been put out of business. They didn't try. Then it was never part of, single payer was never ever part of the Obama program. And to suggest that this particular president is pushing an extreme leftist agenda, I have to say, as someone who's got no dog in this hunt and is not a Republican or a Democrat, it's extremely disingenuous.
I don't think so.
A medical reform plan that leaves the insurance companies standing and profitable and very much part of the process is not, you may not like it, you may find it left of center, you may find it objectionable, but to say that it's an extreme leftist plan is just, I don't know, it doesn't conform with any definitions of leftism that I'm familiar with.
I think the president has a model, and I think his trips to Europe have demonstrated during the campaign or so forth. And there's nothing wrong with it, but it's a model of a type of medical socialism that we have in Canada, and we have in Britain, and we have in Europe. I think that's the president's instincts. I think they had the public option and the other very liberal aspects of the plans that were dropped because of the strong opposition of the American people is what he desired and what the Democratic majority, particularly the leadership in the Congress, Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid, would have wanted. And I do think that is far to the left.
The British and Canadian style plan was never, ever part of any proposal by the Democratic Party. Andres.
Yes. I think many of the models we were looking for are models that have been discussed here in the United States. I mean, we talk about, conservatives and Republicans. We had a conservative, Mitt Romney, who passed universal health care in this country, in this state of Massachusetts. We've seen other efforts here. I mean, the model that we brought here was what we felt was best for Americans. It was modeled on opinions by American leaders, and many provisions were brought by Senator McCain and others from the Republican Party. The provision that passed and the provision that's being debated now is a provision that includes moderate, conservative and liberal proposals in there. That's what's going to accomplish what we feel is best for the American people. And again, it's going to provide incredible coverage to millions of Americans who currently can't afford coverage or don't have coverage. And I think that's an incredible accomplishment, not just for this administration, but for this country.
If a Republican had voted for it, wouldn't they be targeted for defeat in the fall?
If a Republican had voted for it? They might be targeted by their own conservative members. They might be targeted by the Tea Parties. I mean, you want to talk about extremism. I mean, if we've seen any extreme element in this healthcare debate, it's been by the Tea Party movement and by conservatives. I mean, we have now a Senate parliamentarian who has to be provided protection, security, because they're threatening his life, that if he doesn't support Republican or conservative provisions, that he's receiving death and his family threats. I mean, this extremism that's going on is certainly not happening on the left. The extremism that's happening, and we've seen it all from this Tea Party movement that's happening, that's causing an internal combustion going on with the Republican Party, where they themselves don't even know where their party is going to go in this future.
Adolfo, if Michael Cow from Louisiana had voted for this bill, as it was rumored he was considering doing, wouldn't he have been targeted for defeat by the Republican Party?
No, he voted for it, of course, the first round, as you might recall. So absolutely not, and there was no repercussion whatsoever. And in fact, I saw very little commentary on it. The fact no Republican voted for it is because the bill is a bad bill. It is a tax bill from our perspective. It reduces Medicare Advantage for millions of Americans. It is a bill that we cannot afford. It is certainly going to be something that's going to change, from my perspective, the way we receive health care for the worse in the United States and cause insurance premiums to go up. That's why we oppose the plan from the beginning. Now, the fact of the matter is, we have, my colleague here talks about, we haven't seen passion from the left. We haven't seen passion because it's an entire movement has started in this country as a consequence of this debate. That's a fact. I live here in Washington, D.C., as both of you do. I've just seen protest after protest organized against the plan. I haven't seen anybody in favor of it. In fact, if anything, the so-called fixes from what I think is a very leftist plan have been made to try to make the plan more palatable to members who are nervous about voting, and to the point that they had to compromise on a series of things that I believe the leadership in the Congress would have preferred not to do so within their own party, to accommodate what I think are the growing discontent of the American people, because it is a package of taxes and government control from a Republican and I think majority American perspective.